Okay, today we're going to make a very easy cake called the tres leches cake. In a big mixing bowl, we want to add in all-purpose flour, salt, and some baking powder. And then we're going to whisk it and put it off to the side. And then we are going to, in two separate bowls, separate the yolks and the whites of the egg. You want to be very, very careful not to mix any of the yolks into the whites because we're going to whisk up the whites at the end and it's not going to whip up properly otherwise. As you can see here, I'm using my hands to separate the yolks from the whites. I think that's the easiest part. If you're worried about the separation, you can crack them all into a bowl and then gently pick out the yolks as well, but please do what works best for you. Then we're going to take the yolks and we're going to add some sugar into it. Here I'm adding 75 grams of white granulated sugar. That's roughly 3/4 cups. Then we're going to whisk it with an electric whisk at high speed until the yolks and the sugar is mixed thoroughly and the color changes to a pale yellow color, as you can see here. And then into the egg yolk and sugar mixture, we're going to add in roughly 60 milliliters of milk. And we're also going to add in some vanilla extract. This is about 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then we're going to whisk it until everything is thoroughly combined. Now we're going to take this egg yolk and milk mixture and we're going to put it into our dry mixture from earlier in the big bowl. And make sure you use a spatula to scrape everything out and don't let anything go to waste. Then we're going to mix everything in with a spatula, and we want to use a gentle folding motion so that we don't get rid of any of the air bubbles that we have whisked into the yolks. So just mix until everything is just combined. You don't have to worry too much about the lumps because later we're going to add in the egg whites and we're going to get rid of the lumps anyways. Now to the egg whites, we're going to add in roughly 25 grams of sugar. You can use as much or as little sugar as you want. But now we're going to whisk the egg whites with an electric mixer on high speed until we get stiff peaks. So at first it's going to look a little bubbly and a little liquidy, but once you keep mixing for roughly 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to end up with what looks a little bit like whipped cream, and you want it to have stiff peaks, so when you lift up the whisk, you want the stiff peaks to hold and not fall over. So you want your peaks to look something like this. So when you lift your whisk out, it holds its shape. Then we're going to take this whisked egg white and we're going to add it into our bowl from earlier with the dry ingredients and the egg yolk and milk mixture. And when you're mixing this in, make sure to be very, very, very gentle with this and only fold it in. Don't stir it or over whisk it. And use a rubber spatula because we want to make sure that the air stays inside the batter so that we have a soft and fluffy cake. Then we're going to take a 9x13 baking dish. Here I'm using a glass baking dish, but you can use a metal one as well. And we're just going to butter it. You can use a silicone brush with melted butter, or you can also use ghee, as I'm doing here, and use a paper towel to just spread it around. Then we're going to take the batter and we're going to gently pour it into the baking dish. Make sure you take everything out and use a rubber spatula to get it out. Once we poured everything out, I like to just gently shake it and get it all nice and evenly spread out. Then we're going to put it into an oven that has been preheating at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Bake this at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Once the cake is done, you can take it out, and to see if it's fully cooked, you can take a toothpick and insert it into the center, and if it comes out clean, that means your cake is cooked. So while the cake is cooling, we're going to make our tres leches, or the 3 milks mixture. So here I'm adding roughly 60 milliliters of whole milk and an entire can of 2% evaporated milk, as well as about a half or 3/4 of a can of sweetened condensed milk. You can add as much or as little sweetened condensed milk as you like, depending on how sweet you want your cake to be, but here I'm only adding about half or 3/4 of a cup of sweetened condensed milk. Then we're going to take a whisk and mix this mixture until it's thoroughly combined, and make sure that the sweetened condensed milk has not all settled at the bottom. Then, once the cake has fully cooled, we're going to take a fork and poke some holes in the cake. This will help the milk mixture absorb into the cake quicker. Then we're going to take our milk mixture from before and make sure you stir it one more time before we add a little bit in at a time. And we want to make sure that it coats all of the cake, including the corners. And we want to spread it out little by little so that it has time to absorb and soak into the cake. Once you have put your milk mixture in, you want to let this sit in the fridge for at least 4 to 5 hours, or ideally overnight before you eat it. You can add a whipped cream topping onto this, or you can eat this cake as it is, but you have to let it sit for at least 4 to 5 hours, or again, ideally overnight. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you try this recipe too.